Talk Radio 77. WABC. This is More Money with economist Steve Moore. Now, Steve Moore.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC. First guest of the afternoon is a longtime friend and a comrade and a brother in arms, Mark Skousen, who is the founder of one of the most important conferences held every year called Freedom Fest. And if you've not been to Freedom Fest, folks, you've got to go. It's 3,000 to 5,000 people who love liberty, love freedom, love the free enterprise system, some of the best speakers, some of the best events you'll ever see. And then Mark Skousen is also the presidential scholar professor at Chapman University and is one of the wisest economists I know. So I wanted to talk to Mark. And by the way, Mark, thanks for coming on this afternoon.
Hey, my pleasure. And by the way, on Freedom Fest, we're going to be in California for the first time.
Where?
At Palm Springs. Yeah, in Palm Springs, California. So it's going to be very exciting.
I can't wait for that. I've been a regular attendee for, 20. How many years has it been for Freedom Fest?
Well, since 2007. So we're heading up to 18 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really a great conference. So if people want
when
to know
when
more,
will that? When is it this? When is it this in 2025?
It's June this time. Normally it's July, but it's June 11th through the 14th. And if people go to freedomfest.com, they'll get all the details.
Okay. So the reason I wanted to have Mark on is, Mark, I am very concerned about the profession that you and I are in, which is the economics profession, and especially in the universities, but also on Wall Street. I see kind of a takeover of the economics profession by kind of the more radical left socialist Keynesians. It seems to me that in this kind of environment, it would be hard for an Adam Smith or a Milton Friedman to get a job.
Yeah, it's not only, I wrote this article in the Wall Street Journal about this really very popular professor who advocates free market economics and teaches a class at Austrian economics at Occidental College, or known as Oxy, in Los Angeles. Yeah. And he was kicked out. He'd been there for 14 years, and they
didn't he have tenure?
No, he did not have tenure. He was basically an adjunct, but he was very popular. He filled in all the different classes, econometrics and stuff like that. Very high ratings, and 400 students. They only have 1,800 students at Oxy, and 400 students signed a petition saying, hey, this guy is great. Why are you getting rid of him? And it turns out that he's the only free market economist, not only in the economics department, but in the entire university. So they are gradually doing this, and it's all over the country. In University of Arizona, the Goldwater Institute talked about something like that. And what I wanted to mention was the AEA itself, the American Economic Association, has gone totally woke. And their conference that they have every January, they basically are squeezing out all the free market people, or most of them, in terms of they have 42 sessions out of the 500 sessions in January. They just printed their preliminary agenda. They have 42 on diversity and inequality and race and all of this stuff. But do they have room? We proposed a session on Hayek, because Friedrich Hayek is celebrating his 50th anniversary of his Nobel Prize. And we thought, well, let's do a session on that. Even though we had two women on the session, including Barbara Kohm, who you know from Vienna, who's going to fly out there at her own expense, they still canceled or they rejected our session. Meanwhile, they have sessions honoring Robert Solow, the Keynesian economist at MIT who passed away last year, and Ben Bernanke, who actually engineered the financial crisis of 2008. They're honoring him with the Nobel Prize, as you know.
So this is a very disturbing thing for anyone who cares about economics and our economy and how it functions. There's a right way to be thinking about economics, and there's a wrong way. And it's pretty clear to me the free market has worked everywhere it's been tried, and socialism has failed everywhere it's been tried. And so they can't even get that right. But look, what worries me is one of the reasons that you have tenure. And by the way, I'm opposed to tenure. But the reason the universities have tenure is they always say, well, this is to protect people who have a view that might not be politically popular. And yet, who are the people that they are firing as the people who have opinions that they don't find popular? And those are free market positions. And so it seems to me there's a kind of indoctrination going on in these schools that is not at least exposing them to the other side of the story.
Yeah, and you can see this in the textbooks as well. They have this new textbook that they replaced Greg Mankew's textbook out of Harvard. He's probably the most popular textbook writer in the country. And he's somewhat pro-free market. I mean, he starts with the classical model, and he's even though he gives the position of the Keynesian model, it's at the end of the textbook. Well, they replaced his textbook with another one by this gal named Becky Stevenson. And she is, what's really funny is that they chose hers over Mankiw because she used the her and the she more than he did. They had this whole study. Right. So they've gone woke in so many ways. Now, fortunately, we do have Tyler Cowen from GMU has a textbook. We have
That's George Mason University. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have Gortney and Stroop from, I'm trying to think, at Florida State. So there are, and Roger Leroy Miller, there are free market textbooks out there. But, and also Sean Flynn, who writes the McConnell Brew textbook. So it is a battle that's going on. And I haven't given up this battle. I speak at universities all the time on my title. You'll love my title that gets a lot of students coming. The title is, What's Better Than Democratic Socialism? And, of course, students are saying, well, what could possibly be better than democratic socialism? And, of course, the answer is democratic capitalism. And I talk about the stakeholder philosophy where workers benefit as well as the executives and the CEOs. Students really love this solution and as an alternative, because you can't get rid of a bad idea unless you replace it with a good idea. So I promote this idea of democratic capitalism.
So why you've been on university campuses for a long time, taught at a lot of schools, and it is deeply disturbing to me that our schools are not teaching Americans the freedom message, that freedom should prevail, and that big government is something that is not only bad for your liberties, but it's also bad for your economy. And I don't really get it, why it is that these universities are so populated with leftists and that there's essentially no room, unless you go to, some of these schools that are overtly conservative, for a free market conservative position.
Yeah, and one of the reasons for this is the Marxists do have an agenda. We don't. We're like a herd of cats. We go wherever we go, and we don't have an agenda. The Marxists and the socialists have an agenda. They come in, there's one person in the department, and they get another one, and eventually they take over the department. And we don't do that. And that's even the University of Chicago now, I don't think have any pure free market economists left. Maybe John
Casey Mulligan is there, and he's
obviously
good.
But they're a small minority now. Since all of the Nobel Prize winners, Friedman and Becker, they've all died, and the new ones, it's a small minority, unfortunately, and so there is this transition that's going on. I'm fighting it at the AEA meetings, and elsewhere. And John Stossel, by the way, has done a really good job because he gets into all of the schools with his both sides of the issue type of thing. So he interviews both sides of the issue, and that way he does get into a lot of the schools and education and the institutions. So
funny.
I'm not pessimistic that we have lost this battle, but it is a battle going on, and people who are donating money to the Fund for American Studies or the Cato Institute or what have you, we need to specialize in really working on changing the education that students are getting And I'm not saying that everybody has to be a free market economist. We just need our view presented to the students. They love it when they hear it. I mean, at Chapman University, I teach free market economics, and I was even told at Chapman that we have statues of Milton Friedman and Ronald Reagan and Ayn Rand on our campus in California. But most of the students are taught Keynesian economics in their classrooms.
So for parents that want to send their kids, or parents or students that want to go to a school that will teach them classical economics, the way the world works. It used to be you had University of Chicago, UCLA, schools like that would really teach the free market system. And by the way, it's really the only system that works. So it's ahistorical to say that socialism works or Keynesianism works. What schools, can you point to 4 or 5 schools out there that you think, are good schools to go to if you want to learn the free market system?
Well, I certainly think George Mason University is one of the top schools.
That's where I got my degree. I got my master's at George Mason.
That's right. And their economics department is still very free market. I would say Chapman University. I mean, we have Vernon Smith, we have myself, we have Jim Doty, who is the former president of Chapman, who's a libertarian. So there are some schools out there that offer this. Northwood University in Michigan, certainly, and then Hillsdale. You can't forget Hillsdale is a great undergraduate institution. They've done.
What about Clemson?
Well, Clemson does have some free market economists there, have in the past. I don't know how many are still around at Claremont, but that's certainly a possibility.
And a lot. We got only 30 seconds left. We've got most of our listeners, not all of them, but most of them are in the New York metropolitan area. What about New York University? What about Columbia?
NYU in the past has had some free market economists there, and I think there's 1 or 2 left, so that's a possibility as well. But it's not. NYU now has Paul Krugman, so you can imagine what the department's like.
Worst economists in the country. Well, Mark Skousen, I will be there in June of 2025. One more time, where will Freedom Fest be this year? What dates? And how do people learn about it?
It's Palm Springs, California, and it's June 11th through the 14th, and next year. And if people go to freedomfest.com, they can learn all about it. It's going to be a fun conference. It's a great conference.
Yeah, so always is. Mark Skousen, thanks so much for joining. This is the More Money Show on WABC Talk Radio.